and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. How are you doing, Matt?
I am pretty good, sir. Yourself?
I am very well. I'm excited. We didn't really have a movie planned for this week, so I hijacked it, and I was like, I haven't watched Conan for ages. I want to watch Conan the Barbarian. From 1982, of course, not the other one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no. Yeah. I kind of forget that exists.
Yeah, so do I. It's weird, isn't it? When I was getting... Because I realised Conan is now technically owned by Disney. So I was like, I guess we shouldn't put the trailer on in the video because it'll probably just get flagged. So I was like, well, do stills. And I was looking up stills, and of course I typed in Conan the Barbarian, and I was like, oh yeah, that film exists. But yeah.
I think from what I vaguely remember of the movie, because I think I've only seen it once.
I've seen it a couple of times now. Okay. It's still bad.
Was okay. Momoa was all right.
The performances are fine-ish.
The overall story was fucking awful.
Yeah.
And
there's literally a scene in that where Conan's like, nobody should be put in chains, and then in the next scene, he literally enslaves that woman. I'm like, what the fuck? Who the fuck wrote this?
To be fair, the only thing I properly remember of it is Rose McGowan's character, and that's because I fancy Rose McGowan. That's the only reason why I remember that.
I remember sitting in the theater, watching it, and turning to Ben and being like, this is actually pretty good. If it stays like this is great. And the opening 10 minutes with Ron Perlman and the kid, fantastic. As soon as Ron Perlman dies, 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in, awful from that point on. Absolutely dreadful.
That could be said of so many Ron Perlman.
It really could, couldn't it? The Ron Perlman bit was
fine. As soon as
fine.
Ron Perlman, I mean, he said a number of weird fucking things recently, but in movie-wise, he's still great. He's still fantastic. And whenever
I think, like, I cannot... I can't start thinking about what actors say publicly because so many fucking idiots. So I have to go just performance.
Yeah, you just have. I have to think of it. I have to think of it like the way I think of Morrissey.
Yes.
Morrissey
He's
a fucking genius who writes the greatest songs. In personal life, the man's a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm.
He says the horriblest, racist things.
He's dreadful.
Yeah, just a horrible person, aren't you? You really have
to separate art from artists for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when did you first see Conan the Barbarian?
Video. It would have been. It was a video job when I was really young.
A rental.
Yeah.
Cool. I have a theory.
Mm.
Go on. Sorry. First.
Well, I was going to say I was always a bit sniffy about Conan because I've never been big on the sort of whole barbarian-y thing.
Right. So you're not a fan of
well.
Robert
So
Howard
I never read the books until much later.
Yeah.
And I read some of the comics.
Okay.
And I think the difference is that I saw, I love the Frazetta art where you see.
Oh well, I mean that set the template for barbarians in general.
This movie.
Well, and how barbarians look in fantasy. I mean that literally Frazetta literally
if you
is
want
the template.
You go for Frazetta.
Yeah.
But I think I saw a picture of Elric and was like, "Who's that?" I like the look of that guy, and I read every sort of Moore cookbook after that, and I guess I just like my heroes a bit more miserable and
sure
and circumspect and just generally more depressing. So I kind of went to Elric and not Conan until much later. I just had this thing in my head that Conan was just a big dumb barbarian and.
Well, and he's way more dumb in the movie than he is in the source material.
Yeah,
he's actually quite smart in the source material.
Yeah, he's got a gift for languages and stuff, and but because of my perceived bias of Conan, I didn't touch it until not the movie, because the movie was different, but I didn't touch the sort of the books until much later, and I was like, oh damn, I really should have read these.
I wish I'd read these earlier.
Yeah.
So I've got a theory, and this theory all stems from one scene in the movie.
Right.
Because I think I first watched this taped off of TV.
Right.
And the reason I say that, either there was a different cut on VHS or I taped it off the TV, because there is a scene later on when they're preparing for their final stand, Subutai and Conan.
Yeah.
Subutai and Conan had this conversation. And it's on the DVD. It's also on. It was on the DVD that I watched earlier, and they're just talking, and I'm like, I have never seen, like, until I got it on DVD, I had never seen that scene before. So I'm like, either the version I had was taped off TV and they cut that scene out.
Yeah, probably.
For like, to bring the sort of running time down for TV.
Mm-hmm.
Or the VHS version I had it cut out. But I think I'd watched it on TV, which is why that whenever I see that scene to this day, I'm always like, that's weird. I never remember that scene existing before. Because I watched this film a lot as a kid. So I kind of know it like the back of my hand, and for some reason that scene sticks out like a sore thumb as a scene that shouldn't be there. So I think it was a TV job for me.
See, TV did a lot of butchering back in those.
I always used to laugh when they put Predator on. I was like, why did you even bother? Like, why did you bother putting Predator on TV? They cut so much out of it that it's like, I don't even.
I know. The thing is, they're doing it again now as well. They've scenes out of movies. There was a Spider-Man got a load of cut out of it recently on ITV.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's so it's when Spider-Man. It's the Remy one.
Yeah.
It's when he's in his mock suit and he's fighting Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh yeah.
He makes a joke about. He says, "Oh, did your husband make those clothes for you?" They cut that out completely. So it's like, right, okay, really?
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, there's some of the scenes that got out, and like you're right, because there were certain movies that I watched, on video or something years later, like I don't even fucking remember that.
Like those weird scenes that just happen, and you're like, yeah, that must have been cut out of my version because I do not remember that happening.
And I think one of the weirdest ones of that, which I don't think it happened over here, but I think happened in America. There's a TV cut of Superman that's got a scene in it that the normal ones don't.
Oh, really?
Or didn't have. I think it's been added now. It's the scene with the cat rescue.
Right.
The cat rescue wasn't in the original version. It was only in the TV cut for a long time.
Well, in like June, right? I mean, the TV version, one of the TV cuts of June is like the longest version of June available. There's so much more in it.
Yeah, they added loads of stuff to it.
Yeah.
Well, other than the version that's on YouTube.
Yes, that's fantastic.
I can't remember what it's called now. There's the June Strider cut, is it?
Spice Minor or something like that.
Yeah, that cut's the best version.
It's a fantastic cut.
But until I saw that version, that TV one was the best version. Because they explained a lot of the prehistory stuff.
Well, that version, literally opens with just talking over still images of like, this is this, and this is that, and this is this, and this is that. It goes on for like 20 minutes before the film even starts. But anyway, back to Conan. Let's just get into it, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say off the bat, as we open here, I think, in my opinion, Conan has one of my favourite scores of all time, musically.
Oh, fucking awesome score.
Every song.
Basil Polidorus.
Yes. But this is one of my favourite openings. The forging of the sword.
Mm-hmm.
God damn, I love this opening. It pumps me up every time I see it.
It's one of the most perfect openings to any movie.
It really is, isn't it? The forging of his father's sword. And the music matches perfectly. The whole process is shown of the making of the sword, and of course we come to realize as we see Conan's father talking to Conan about steel and the riddle of steel, and that the gods lost they lost the knowledge of steel on the battlefield, and we have to go and before Crom, our god, and tell him the riddle of steel, and he's going to ask us to tell him. So it's an intrinsic part of Conan's group, tribe, race, I guess, in the Hyborian Age, and so
we also get the really cool Mako voiceover at the very.
Of course, yeah.
Explaining when it's set and what's happened and what's going on in the world at this point.
Yes, yeah.
And I love Mako's voice.
Mako is so like Mako is just untouchable. He really is, and this is my favorite. I think this might be my favorite film with Mako as well. Whenever anyone says Mako, I think of that voice doing this spoken word.
I think the two other things I always think about Mako is Samurai Jack.
Oh yeah.
And Avatar.
Oh yeah, of course.
First 2 seasons, I think he was the voice, because I think he died after season 2, I think.
Right.
So I think it was only but he was Uncle Iroh for the first 2 seasons, I think.
But yeah, so we get I think it's Niall, isn't it? Played by William Smith. And he tells Conan that you can't trust men, you can't trust women or beasts, and then he kind of points to the sword and he's like, this you can trust. Like, they only trust the sword. And like I said, their whole religion is Crom living in his big mountain, and that he's a god that they will all go before when they die, and they must know the answer to the riddle of steel. So I it's kind of winter, isn't it? And we later see Conan kind of
and I must say that when he's talking to his son about the sword in Quran, that blue screen is pretty good for 82.
I think it looks fine. Yeah, I think it looks fine.
I mean, obviously you can tell it's green screen, but for 82, it's pretty fucking good.
Yeah. It's not bad at all. It's not bad at all.
I've seen way worse. I mean, I've seen Disney do fucking worse
recently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, of course, and his father, played by William Smith, who is kind of known for having a body back in his day, so it kind of it's kind of fitting that he ended up being Conan's father. It's like, if he's going to be Arnold's father, that makes sense,
And the inscription on the sword reads, "Suffer no guilt, ye who willed this, in the name of Crom."
Yes. Yeah.
Which is fucking cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's winter, and we get this wonderful, wonderfully framed shot. Is the attackers come in? You get that really crazy barbarian-looking guy.
I call the dog boy.
Yes, dog boy.
He is literally. I mean, that shot of him. He jumps up onto that rock.
The framing of it as well, because then you get the horses come from either side while he's stood there. It's so good.
It's a sort of almost looking up at him shot, and the horses come either side, and it's just one of the most beautiful shots in the whole movie.
The thing is, and I guess hiring Arnold Schwarzenegger helps tremendously with this, but this may not be very close to the source material in terms of the Robert E. Howard stuff and in terms of Conan, right? But what it does do...
It's closer to Cull, apparently. I've never read the Cull stuff.
No, I've not read Cull.
Apparently it's more his story than Conan's.
Sure. I know originally they planned to have a lot more. They were going to have a lot more of the supernatural stuff and the kind of fantasy stuff with like hordes of monsters and stuff. But, it's 1982 and,
It was the original version... Well... Not the original. The first draft was written by one of the guys who did the comics, and then Oliver Stone, which that alone boggles me. Just the idea that Oliver Stone wrote Conan. I don't know why. Just the idea that the guy who did JFK, did Conan was just weird. But he wrote his version was post-apocalyptic.
Oh,
he had like all mutants and stuff, and like he wanted full-on mutant battles and things, and he had this idea to make 12 movies.
Jesus Christ!
He wanted Arnold to come back every year or two to do another movie, and he literally said, like Bond, he wanted to do a Conan stuff like Bond, and it was going to be all this post-apocalyptic. And then when it went to John Milius and stuff, by the time it got to and Dino De Laurentiis picked up because they did I can't remember the guy who had the original rights, but he had it since like 75,
right? And
they've been trying, and by the 77 plans had become pretty. They started making proper plans, and Schwarzenegger was on board by then, and it still had a long way to go.
Yeah.
But by the time Milnes gets it, they're like, no, we need to make this, get rid of the futuristic stuff and just...
Yeah, I think so. I think
so.
Yeah,
and I think he had a plan to make a trilogy, and then a set of trilogies it was going to be, sort of thing.
Right. I mean, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so although it's not very close to the source material of Robert E. Howard, there are, and like I said, having Schwarzenegger cast in the role really helps with this. But my God, some of these shots, including this one, could be a Frazetta painting.
Yeah.
Like the still of that guy with the horses coming either side is like that. Oh my God, there's some wonderful shots in this film.
Many of the shots could just literally be out of a Frazetta painting.
They really could. If you get a still shot, you're like, yep, that's a Frazetta painting right there. Yeah, so they are attacked by this group of seemingly bandits at the time, I guess.
Yeah,
Black Riders.
They've got this. You can see this. They've got a snake standard.
Yes, the serpent.
But they don't. At this point, they're not. They don't seem to be an established.
No, they're a lesser faction, I guess. They're just like.
Yeah.
I always assumed they were like just marauding kind of.
Yeah.
Almost Viking-esque raiders at this stage. So the village is assaulted. The villagers fight back as best they can. Conan's father actually takes out quite a few people with his brand new sword.
Yep. And there's a really good shot of when they're stood in the sort of the forge, aren't they? And the riders come over, and he turns around and goes to grab his wife, and his wife pulls away from him. She's like, "No fucking way! I'm not."
Yeah.
I'm part. You get that sort of thing of it. She's totally part of this.
They're a warrior village. That everyone's a warrior.
Yeah.
But eventually, in front of Conan and his mother, he is basically taken out with an axe to the back and then attacked by dogs.
Yeah, ripped apart by dogs.
And the dogs are like, I mean, obviously, it's a horrendous way to go, and it's quite a brutal scene. But I always thought when the dogs come running at him, I think it's the little hats they've got. They just kind of look cute in a weird way.
I can agree with that. There is something about the little hoodie sort of.
Yeah, it's the hats that do it. If it wasn't for the hats, like.
Yeah, I don't know whether it needed more spikes or something.
Yeah, maybe that would have been fine.
They do look. They got the like almost dainty little hats.
Yeah, it's like that's not going to protect them in any way, and it just makes them look a bit cute, in my opinion. They would have been way more scary without the hats, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, but then it is a very brutal scene when he's kind of taken down and the dogs are kind of tearing him apart. And it's at this point that we see Rexor and Thorgrim, and we also meet for the first time Thulsa Doom, played by the great James Earl Jones. One of my favorite James Earl Jones performances is Thulsa Doom.
Yeah. And he's not really even in the movie that much.
He doesn't need to be.
He barely does anything.
Yeah, but isn't that the leader of every cult?
Yeah, exactly. He's the perfect. I mean, when you see later on when he's got he hypnotizes people. It's well, actually, he does it to his mother, doesn't he?
He does in this very scene.
Yeah,
and they kind of put some effort into to make Thulsa Doom look like an alien kind of being. So they gave him the straight hair and blue
because they don't mention it in the movie, but supposedly he's the last of his race.
Yes, I read some. I think it was a director's commentary or something where they talked about that, and they said that he's meant to be the last of his kind. So he stands out amongst all of the rest.
Yeah.
So his mother is standing there with her sword ready to attack Thulsa Doom, and he hypnotizes her, and I think this is one of the best shots. So good.
What I love about this is that she's holding Conan's hand.
That's that shot is so good, and the kid's reaction as well is fantastic.
He hypnotizes her because she's ready to strike, and he's just staring at her.
But and she lowers her sword.
Yeah, she lowers her sword, and he basically, he cuts her head off.
What I really like though is he has that moment where he turns his back as if he's not going to.
Yeah,
and then he comes back around.
He comes back and he cuts her head off, which you don't actually see properly.
You see you see out of focus the head kind of fall to the side, don't you?
You see that, and you're at Conan's angle because
you're at Conan's height, aren't you? Yeah,
you're at Conan's angle, and she slowly topples, away.
Yeah,
and
her hand just kind of...
Her hand just comes away from Conan's hand. And it's almost like a look of confusion on his face as he just looks at his hand.
Yeah.
His empty hand.
And then realizes finally.
Beautiful shot.
It really is. I mean, a horrific shot, but a beautiful
shot.
Yeah,
horrific, but beautiful.
Framing is everything, and this film is so well directed.
Yeah.
So, the village is kind of burnt to the ground, pretty much razed to the ground, and any survivors are basically taken away in chains,
and it's
including Conan.
Mostly children, isn't it?
Yeah.
That there's not many people left, but I think a few women and a lot of children.
Yeah, and some of the survivors at the very well, of course, we get the Mako here talking about them being led away in chains.
Yeah.
And then we see Conan and some of the villagers, or presumably prisoners from other villages as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
They're taken to the Wheel of Pain, which is a grain mill, I think, a massive grain mill.
What? To this.
I don't know what it does, but it does something.
To this day, I have no idea what that wheel does.
Because
you look at it. Wait, it
makes
Conan's. Yeah, the Conan wheel.
Yes,
it doesn't have anything that looks like it's grinding. It doesn't look like it's powering anything, and it doesn't look like it's drilling anything. It's just a wheel, and you think, okay, there must be some reason why you would have it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but I love. This is one of my favorite aging transitions. Goddamn love this.
Also, actually, before they even get there, they
walk pretty far.
Yeah, the passage of time and the distance they show is really good.
It's another thing.
Well done, little space of time.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because there's another scene later, and I think this film does this very well. Because I really we see very little of Conan and Subutai hanging out together, but the passage of time is so evident, and their friendship is so evident from very short scenes. It's really well done. And yes, here again, that you really feel like they traveled far to get to where they've gone to. But this transition is wonderful. We see the Wheel of Pain, and we see all of these kids pushing and some adults pushing the wheel around, and it gets less and less as Conan gets older and older. We get that kind of skinnier adolescent version of Conan with the hair covering his face the whole time. And then finally we see it's just the first thing you see is the legs. It's like, those are Arnold legs. Okay. And of course we get that wonderful shot again, but this time it's Schwarzenegger, and he looks up as we see he's the only person now pushing the bloody thing around.
And he looks surprisingly good with long hair, Schwarzenegger.
He pulls it off, doesn't he? You wouldn't have thought he would, but he does pull it off. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess in the end, they're like...
Two things I've always thought about this, though. One, there is no way he gets that buff and that...
not that proportional.
Sculpted, doing that forever.
No, because he is proportional as well. He's like, he's his bodybuilder proportions. There's no way. You'd have certain very big muscles, but the rest...
The other thing I always wonder is, do you think he has trouble turning right for a bit after that?
Yeah, yeah.
Just going round in circles.
I mean, I guess we're meant to assume that they had other tasks as well.
Yeah.
And that the wheel was one of the many tasks they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so eventually, Conan is purchased by this redheaded guy, warrior, asshole.
Yeah.
He buys Conan, and the mill, I think, just gets shut down. They're like, well, we don't really know what this mill does anyway.
We don't have the Conan anymore. We've perfected the Conan now. We don't need wheel anymore.
To be honest, this wheel didn't actually do anything in the first place, so we might as well just close it. I don't even know why it's here, but so he's
it's
bought.
Not like when you see a pulled out shot of it. There doesn't appear to be anything else around it.
No, it's just in the middle of nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he's bought by this aging warrior who basically makes him into a pit fighter. And we get that great introduction to Conan, like innocent Conan.
Yeah.
As he's just thrown into the pit and he's just completely confused and this horrible.
Because I guess to all intents and purposes,
he's never had a human interaction really.
Probably still a 10-year-old mentally.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how. 10. I just 10 randomly.
Well, certainly at this point, because we see that he's given he's given things to read and he's taught.
Yeah.
Later, as while he's here, because of how good he is in combat. But in this scene, he's innocent. He's innocent Conan, and you've got this horrible guy trying to maul him.
Big dude with filed teeth.
Yes, and of course Conan kills him.
And I
eventually,
he sort of bites. He goes for Conan's throat, doesn't he? You get the usual irony noises.
Arnold noises. You get that quite a few times during the movie.
Yeah.
One
of the things I did like about Arnold and for this movie is, one, he had to slim down.
Yeah. Because
he was too big to wield the sword properly.
Yeah.
Which is one of those things that I love when you find out about, when you think about barbarians and stuff in games and
oh, it is. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's fantasy.
Yeah, you think, if you have actually ever seen anybody with that many big muscles try and move around and move a sword around, it does not work.
No, it's silly. It's
silly. I do think it does fascinate. I do love the fact that he had to slim down so that he could use it.
Well, this is the problem, that it's one thing in a Frazetta painting, but when it's in motion, you're like, actually physically it doesn't really work that well. It's actually not that practical.
But the other thing I love is that because this was his first proper movie.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he got hired because they liked the look of him in Pumping Iron, right?
Yeah. So he was obviously he was a name in the bodybuilding circuit. He was he'd won Mr. Universe and stuff. So they saw him and thought, yeah, he's perfect for the role. But what I really love is that he apparently got in with they basically went to they took him to James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow and said, teach him stuff. And apparently he completely everything, all of his. I mean, let's face it, he's not the greatest actor in this movie. He
really?
doesn't need to be.
No,
but
he doesn't need to be.
The lines he does deliver,
I think he does an admirable job,
especially with Valeria. His lines with Valeria are really well delivered, and he clearly learned pretty well for what he had to do. And I like the fact that James Earl Jones and Sydow taught him how to sort of deliver lines better. And
he apparently thinks that Sydow is like the greatest actor he ever met.
He absolutely adores him, or adored him.
Yeah.
And actually, to be honest, I'd forgotten he was even in this movie.
He's not in it for very long. There's a funny story about why he's not in it for as long, because he was meant to. There was meant to be an extra scene, but they
oh, okay. I didn't know that one.
We'll get to it when we get to it.
Cool. I do know why he took the job.
Wasn't it for his kid or something?
Yeah, like Aragon, like was Vigo was like his kid and his kids read the books and he was like, oh, I'll get some kudo points with my son here. So
yeah. So he quickly becomes a very accomplished fighter, and again we get a great transition. We see him getting better and better and more
different weapons,
trained. And we see that he's given the combat skills. He's given weaponry. He's taken to the Far East and he's taught how to fight in Eastern styles with like almost like a katana blade.
I love that dude.
The dude who gets kicked.
The trick, that's
so funny.
So that dude's Kiyoshi Yamasuki, and he actually is their sword trainer.
Yeah.
He was their real sword trainer.
Legit badass.
So yeah, he was, and they thought, well, we might as well give him a part.
We got him here, yeah.
So they
give that man some wild hair, and off we go.
And I love that he's not doing it right, so the move right, so he slaps Conan. And the guy next to him is like laughing at this guy, and he just casually walks past Conan and he kicks him, doesn't he? And the guy just goes down like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. I love that little thing.
And we also see that they get Conan to breed as well.
Yes.
Which I think, like, when you think about it, you're like, well, it kind of makes sense. They're like slavers and they're winning money from this guy fighting. It's like, well, if we can make more Arnold Schwarzeneggers to go in our pit, great, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, so eventually,
I mean, when you think about things like in Roman times, the rich women would pay to sleep.
Well, yeah. That's not inferred in this film.
No.
But yeah.
Oh, not with that. No, not with the lady that you see there. No. But he is vaguely gentle.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's. Of course,
but again, he's not really at that stage, especially. He is not very. He's a 10-year-old, right? 10, 15-year-old. He doesn't really understand his mentally. He's whereas later, obviously, because I think that actually happens before he goes to the East, and before he gets kind of.
I thought it was after that.
It might be after.
Because I think when you see him in his cell, he's reading scrolls and things.
Oh, that's true. He is reading at that point. There's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So eventually, and I think Mako says he wasn't sure if it was jealousy or what.
Yeah.
But eventually, his master frees him. We don't know why. But free.
I always just thought, it'd been so long, and I guess that maybe he just felt guilty or something.
Yeah, maybe.
After all these years, it was just a case of, he's done so
for us.
He's done so much for him. He clearly made him enough bloody money.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, so Conan is now free, but with no idea how anything works. So off he goes into the wild, and is quickly chased by some wolves.
Wild dogs. Apparently, those wild dogs are like genuinely horrible. When you see him running away from those dogs, he's really running away from those dogs.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, they even attacked the trainer.
Oh my god!
So they weren't terribly well trained dogs. So Arnie is genuinely running away from them.
Damn. So yeah, he manages to find like tremors. He finds like some rocks and jumps onto the rocks to get away from them, but slips and falls into a tomb. I think they say it's an Atlantean general.
Yeah,
sat on his throne.
I never knew this until recently that it's an Atlantean colonizer or something, a colonist. So he at some point they'd obviously come from Atlantis to conquer this bit of territory.
Yeah,
and obviously they died there, but the designs are amazing.
Oh, incredible! And I love, so far it's a fantasy setting, but so far we've had nothing fantasy.
No.
And this is the first hint of it. The next scene goes full on fantasy, but this starts getting us kind of there, where he takes the sword, he finds this sword and is covered in I don't know what it is, if it's like in rock or something.
I'm guessing it's just built up grime. Just sort of eons of dust, sort of
eons
thing.
Of dust have somehow turned into concrete. I don't know, but he takes it and as he's like wielding the sword and looking at the sword. The skeleton starts to move, but obviously it's because he took the sword. But the way they do it, it makes it look like, oh, maybe he's coming alive. And I think this might be, well, it is the first time. Of course it is, because I think it's the first time we actually hear him speak. The head falls off and the helmet falls to the ground. And he says Crom, which is the name of his god, and this is kind of his word for fucking hell throughout the movie. And I think that's the first word we hear Conan say is Crom. And then we get this great transition. Again, I love this. This is a great transition. We get Conan comes outside and he smashes the blade to get rid of all the crud. And then he's got the sword and he cuts the chains and the wolves wake up and they look at him and you just get that shot of Conan with the sword looking at the wolves. Cut to next scene. He's wearing a wolf skin. I was like, brilliant. That's fantastic.
I got me some clothes.
Yeah. So he's traveling. Then he's out traveling, and he comes across an obvious witch. Yeah, he's like walking along in the forest, and this comes across this hut, and this beautiful woman comes out, and she's like, "Hey, I've got fire and
stuff."
Was
made of gingerbread.
Yeah. She's like, "I've got food and a fire. Don't you want to warm yourself by my fire?" And I'd be like, "You're a witch."
Yeah, I mean,
this is a terrible idea.
The only thing you can think of is, he's like, he's got a teenager's brain, so there's no way he doesn't know what. He has a clue of what she is.
Yeah,
what's going on? It's just a great looking woman in this doorway beckoning.
So yeah, we get some more story here though, because he does go in and he says to her, "Look, I am looking for this symbol."
She says, "Oh, you're the one. They told me that you would come from
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
the north." And then she mentions snakes, and he's like, "You said snakes."
And she describes the symbol, doesn't she?
Yeah, and he says about the thing, because he does that thing with the. He says
snakes coming together,
and he does that thing with his fists. And it's like, that was just to show his arms off, wasn't it?
There's a lot of shots in this movie just to show his arms off. There's a shot in Conan the Destroyer.
You, to be honest.
No, totally. There's a shot in Conan the Destroyer where they're fighting. It was one of the best fight scenes in the movie. They're fighting on horseback, and then they fall off the horse, both of them, him and his enemy.
Yeah.
And it is literally like he strikes this pose, and you're like, your arms are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, just.
I mean, the only more ridiculous shot of his arms is in Predator.
When Well, obviously.
When he first goes, is it Matt? Is it, not Mac, is it? Max the other dude.
Dylan.
Yeah. And they
son of a bitch.
They lock arms. Yeah, and it's like, Jesus Christ, that shot lingers way too long.
It's so ridiculous, but brilliant. But yes, so so he discusses this with her, and she says there is a price to pay for the information, Barbarian. And the price, I'm not sure what the price was. I guess to give her a son, or potentially he was going to get eaten later. I'm not sure what it was. Yeah, but they end up having sex.
Maybe it's a sort of like a transfer thing.
Or she could have, of course, been referring to Valeria.
Well, that's true.
Well, there will be a loss there.
She does appear to be a seer, so
yeah. But yeah, so during sex, she decides to casually shapeshift into this horrific creature. Again, the filed teeth come into play. But Conan knows how to deal with people with filed teeth now. He's dealt with them.
Fire.
Yeah, chuck her in the fire. He chucks her in the fire, but she escapes she turns into a fireball and escapes the hut. And I've always found this scene quite funny. I think it's meant to be funny when she's flying away and he says "Crom" again.
Yeah.
I always find it really funny when you just hear her laughing as she kind of flies off.
Yeah, she's just completely cackling as this fireball ricochets off things. Again, though, really great.
Oh, it's great. It's fantastic effect. A lot of this film really stands up well, I think.
More than the second one does.
Oh, God, yeah. The second one is... I have a soft spot for the second one, but it's not a good film.
Yeah, the thing about the second one is, the second one's way more fantastical.
Oh, it is, yeah.
It's got way more sort of gribblies and sort of weirdness in it, but it's just not... It's nowhere near as good a movie.
It's a super campy D&D campaign. You've got all of the characters.
The humor in it is terrible.
But you've got the party as well. It's like a full party. You've got the barbarian. You've got the mage. You've got it's like literally the thief. You've got
terrible thief. Who is just no fucking.
He's no Super Tie. No, I love Super Tie. I was always disappointed.
I do, well.
Always disappointed.
Same here. When we watched the second one, it was like. Is he fucking supposed to be Subotai?
No, he's definitely a different character.
He's not, but when you first watch it, you're like, who the fuck is this? What have they done? Why have they recast him? You think this is... And then you think, oh no, it's actually not Subotai, but it's so annoying.
Yeah.
And that's I forget what his name is now, but it's the guy who Jack Nicholson's mate, isn't it?
Yes.
From, Bob.
Bob. But so... Having seen this demon, witch demon, who knows, shapeshift and fly out of the window of this hut, Conan thinks it would be a great idea just to sleep in that hut for the night anyway. So he does that, which I always find really odd.
Yeah, I did as well, but I guess she's fucked off, so...
I guess, but I'd be like, she could come back while you're asleep in her hut. It seems like a terrible idea, but fine. He sleeps there, and the next morning he leaves, only to hear someone shout, "Give me food."
Yeah.
And of course it's Subotai. Thief and Archer. He led with Thief, and then afterwards he's like, I'm also an archer. I'm not completely useless.
Yeah, it's like, who leads with Thief? I mean, come on.
Well, I guess in D&D terms, he was naming his primary and then went to his
that
secondary
is true.
skills
That
after.
is very true.
You know, he's like, yeah.
And Jerry Lopez, the guy who plays Supertype, he wasn't an actor.
No, I think he does a great job though.
He was with one of John Milius's mates. He was they're surfer. They were
he's a surfer. Yeah.
So he just said, do you want a part in this movie?
Well, apparently they kept trying to. They were looking for someone that looked like him. They were like, we want someone like Jerry Lopez, because obviously it was his mate of his. He's like, I want someone like Jerry Lopez, and then eventually they just went, why don't we just ask him?
Just use him,
it would be much more sensible.
Just get him to do it.
And I love this scene. It sets off. I love their friendship in this movie, and you don't see very much of it, but it's enough, and it's well directed and acted enough to where you feel it. And I love that he says, again, like,
you said, they do a really good job of showing the passage of time. I think.
Their adventures in a bit are like.
This particular bit is slightly too truncated. I think if they've done a few more little scenes with those two,
yes,
just doing stuff,
but it works.
But it works perfectly.
I love that he's like, give me food so that I can fight when the wolves come, not die of hunger, but die in combat. And he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, dinner for wolf.
Yeah.
And they start laughing, and then we get this wonderful scene. We see them, like kind of a montage of them going places and getting into silly things. And
there's this discussion about whose god's better than the other.
Wow, who'd have thought it? People with two different beliefs can get on. Oh my god! Imagine that.
Yeah.
Not in 2022, you can't. But back in the Hyborian age, if you disagreed with each other, you could still be friends.
Yeah.
How about that? So yeah, I love this shot. I think this whole little montage here, it sets up that they're you feel like they've been together a long time. After this, few minutes of montage. I think it does a really good job. I know that's what a montage is meant to do, but I think it achieves that very well here.
I think that the montage is obviously one of those really good devices, but to be honest, most of the time it's not used terribly well.
No, and this I think does do well. Just seeing them running to different places and getting into silly situations.
Yeah,
with that kind of
punching camels and
that comes a little later, doesn't it? The punching the camel.
Yeah.
Goddamn punching the camel.
Honestly, it's horrible, but it is
funny. Well, it's not real.
No, of course not.
So it is funny.
But it's funny.
But yes, so eventually, they're asking about for the serpent symbol, and we get this man finally tells him that it's a snake cult. And their temples are in different towns. They're showing up in different areas around the world, or at least around the region, I guess. And eventually they decide, hey, we're just going to raid one of the temples because apparently it's got great treasures.
Yeah.
Including the Eye of the Serpent, this huge ruby that they've heard about. So I guess people are aware that there are great treasures in the temple, but everyone's scared to go there.
Yeah.
Apart from Conan and Subutai. Now, of course, Conan has two reasons to go there. Because for one, obviously, great to get rubies and riches. But on the other hand, he also wants to know about the snake cult and find out more. So he's all for it. They get to the tower and are prepared to kind of climb it when they find who they think is a guard initially, a woman who introduces herself is Valeria, and she's a thief.
They never mention her name.
They mention her in the sequel. They name her.
Yeah,
that's why I'm thinking about it. I
mention her name in this movie, which I always thought was odd, but yeah, she is called Valeria.
She is, because in the sequel she's called Valeria. They definitely name her in the sequel.
Yeah, she's based on two characters apparently.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
One was a character that is like her, right. But the love of Conan's life apparently is this. She's a pirate queen, and the director didn't want a pirate queen. He wanted a Valkyrie basically. So he's like, no, we're gonna have.
Well, got it.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure how to pronounce her name.
Sandal Bergman.
Sandal. She's fantastic.
She is amazing. Again, she was a dancer and theatre performer. So she was. Right. I can't remember what the production she was seen in it she was seen dancing in this production, and it was like, that's who we want her. And so this was her first sort of major movie, and she's great. She's so good.
She's really good, and you really buy that she is a badass.
Yeah,
like totally. You genuinely buy that she can.
She's like really well built. She really
can stand toe to toe with Conan and Subotai, and
yeah, and they do a really good job of showing that too.
Yeah,
and one of the things I like about her as well is, well, I mean, it's just one of those things. So both her and Schwarzenegger, they couldn't find stuntmen for.
Right.
They couldn't find stuntmen that were their size.
Yeah, because she injured her finger or something, didn't she?
Yeah,
she
properly
injured.
They both did all their own stunts, and she nearly lost a finger during.
Because Conan got hurt falling into the cave as well and stuff. Like, they got hurt quite a bit, I think.
They did, and there's some really good footage of both Schwarzenegger and Sandal going through doing sword training.
Mm.
It's really good footage.
Yeah,
and you can see they completely dedicated themselves to this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean this was
so much training.
Yeah, I mean Arnold obviously. Well, actually, and
he was used. Well, they were both used to, because
and Sandal as well. Yeah, they're both in very
experience.
committed. Committed jobs, I guess, or professions.
Mm-hmm.
So they were good at doing that. But of course, for Arnold and presumably for Sandal as well, I mean, this could be their big break, couldn't it? This could be the thing that
it certainly was for Arnie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Sandal did go on to do quite a few roles. She had a pretty good career, but
I love that Valeria's like, you haven't even got a fucking rope, guys.
What
are you gonna do? But yeah, so they decide to join forces, and they climb up into the tower. I think Valeria checks out the upper level while Conan and Subotai go down.
She mixes with the cultists, and there's a great little thing with this as well, is she comes up behind this like group of cultists, and you see these women dressed in these robes.
Yeah,
and it cuts away to go back to Conan and Subotai, and then when you cut back to her, she's just stood in the position where this cultist in the full cultist gear. It's a great little transition. I love it.
It is fantastic. So they're down there. Subotai and Conan are stealing things. Meanwhile, a young girl is preparing to basically sacrifice herself by jumping into the pit.
Yeah.
And there's music playing and whatnot. Now.
And Conan. So they're in there, and Conan sees the symbol of.
Yeah, because they've got everything they need. Like Subotai goes ahead, and they're about to leave and find.
And they haven't
Conan's
noticed
like
the fucking huge snake.
Yeah, I don't know how, but
cool. I mean, I guess they just thought it was an ornament because it's massive.
Maybe. Yeah.
And of course, the snake slowly starts moving around while he's looking at this symbol, and that is a fucking amazing practical snake.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Brilliant thing. Really, really cool.
And yeah, so they attack and kill the snake, behead the snake. The lady jumps down. This is they only find out when she actually sacrifices herself, and they're like, oh.
She jumps down and she finds the snake already dead.
I was never sure whether, because she falls and she's screaming when she hits the ground. And I'm like, are you screaming from your injuries or are you screaming because of the snake? Like, I'm not sure which.
I presume that she was, because I presume she's sort of not exactly in a trance, but like willing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's definitely willing to
so my guess has always been that she screams because she's of the severed head of the snake.
Yeah. And then of course we get this really funny penny scene where they make their escape. But I love the scene when Valeria shouts something and then they all turn around like, hang on a minute, who the fuck are you?
Yeah,
because she's almost got away with it. They just think she's one of them, and then she turns around and she's like, I can't remember what she shouts, and they're like,
no, because they're already up at the top.
They're getting out, yeah.
And she shouts something, and then does she stab one of them?
Yeah,
she stabs him.
She stabs him and throws him down into the pit, doesn't she?
Yeah. A hasty retreat up the rope.
Yeah, and of course, so Rexor sends the guards, but they get out. And we see that the next few days they're having fun and they party too hard, and get caught. So they're captured by the king's guards, and they're.
I think again. Maybe this is one of the ones where I don't think it's done as well, because I think there's supposed to be lots of time between that. It
looks like they went out that night, partied, and got caught immediately, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I don't think they because the Mako has the voiceover about them getting rich and stuff, and there's a couple of different shots of them in places.
Could have done with a bit more, because you see him like buying necklaces and stuff, and all
and weird hats and things, and getting even more drunk.
Yeah.
So I think there's supposed to be like a big gap of time between initially stealing that ruby and then getting caught by
King Osric.
Osric's guards, yeah.
Yeah, played by Max von Sydow.
And I love that he's there. He's already sort of collapsed into his porridge or whatever it was.
Yeah, and Larry is like, oh god.
Yeah, she can't move him, and he just slides sideways and just like, fuck.
Yes, so they're taken before King Osric, and he basically congratulates them on.
Yeah, I love the way he says, one of you become thieves and things. And he's just doing this. I commend your boldness. And they're like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, so we're not about to get murdered.
No, and in fact, he has a job for them as he commissions them to go and rescue his daughter, Yasmina.
I also like that he says to them, "Where's your other companion?" And Valeria's like, "Oh, he's dead. He's died. He died."
Did she say lions ate him?
Yeah, something like that. And then all of a sudden he gets thrown to the floor next to him. It's like, shit.
Yeah. So yeah, he commissions them to find Yasmina, his daughter, who has apparently been seduced by the cult.
Yeah.
And of course he's furious anyway, because Thulsa Doom's been what he terms it snaking his cities, building these snake towers. He recently, I think it was like a friend of his or someone, was killed by their own son. Using this snake dagger, and he worries that Yasmina may have one of those daggers for him.
Yeah, and he says that she's been promised to Thulsa Doom.
Yes, yeah. So he tasks them with doing that. Now, shortly after this, there was a scene that was cut where Max von Sydow's character was killed, King Osric. And he was assassinated, but they apparently there was this they had this blood bag. They wanted it to be really gory, where he got sliced open and there's blood everywhere.
Right.
And they tried it like 3 or 4 times, and every time it wouldn't work properly. So eventually they did something to, like, I think they might have doubled the blood or something, and basically they did it, but there was so much blood that it was just comically stupid. And they ended up just cutting the whole scene and just never bothered with it, because they were like, it's just ridiculous. Like, it just looks ridiculous.
Well, the original rating it got an R rating originally, and it got.
I can see why. I mean, it's not the goriest of films.
They recut it. They got rid of some of the gore.
I think even without the gore, though, there are shots with people getting bludgeoned by giant hammers and stuff. It's a very violent film.
The dude with the hammer is really brutal.
It's one of the most brutal things I've ever seen, that hammer. Especially because it's wielded by those goddamn, like, I don't know where they're from, but they're, like, huge guys. Ben Davidson and Sven Thorson.
That dude, so the guy who wields the hammer, Sven, he was actually one of Arnold's mates. That
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they were trainers together. They were mates from bodybuilding. And I think Ben Davison was already an actor, I think, but he was, again, I think he was athletic and that. There was a shot at one point where they come out of the temple, which is a bit later.
Yeah.
But they literally look like they've just come off of the cover of a Manowar album.
Oh my god, yeah, they're like they're like Manowar if Manowar had the bodies to back up the image they're trying to go for.
Yeah, exactly that.
Because they genuinely fill out the outfits they're wearing, unlike Manowar, Because I think Man-O-War see themselves as Arnold in a loincloth, but in reality,
I think in the lead singer's head, he is Arnie, isn't he?
Yeah, totally. So Valeria's basically like, fallen in love with Conan. I think they've both fallen in love with each other. And she says, look, I've spoken to Subutai, and why are we doing this? Like, we've got more money than we've ever had. This is the most I've ever had in my life. I've got you. I've got all these riches. Let's not do this.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a genuine,
it's a really nice scene.
Because she says, she used to, when she was on her own, she used to pass camps and she used to see people together, and she used to think, she used to hope that one day she would have that.
Yes, and that someone would be watching her with someone. Yeah.
And she, and now she has that. She doesn't want to do it.
No.
And it's a genuinely beautiful scene.
It really is. It's a wonderful scene, and again, the score really helps as well. The score's fantastic.
So he did like, I think, 2 hours of music.
It's such a good score. It's honestly one of my favorite scores.
And it wasn't even fully available until years later.
Yeah. So she tries her best to convince Conan, but the next morning she wakes up and he's gone. Mm-hmm. He's decided to travel alone to kind of take on Thulsa Doom. It's kind of under the guise of, well, I need to rescue Yasmina, but in reality, it's like, I just want revenge. So he heads up and he kind of travels towards Thulsa Doom's mountain of power, this big old temple. But before he gets there, he comes across Mako.
Yeah,
and I love this scene as well.
This stilted hut.
Yeah, he's got this little hut, and I love how Akiro, I think his name is. He comes out and he's like, "I'm a powerful wizard, mind you."
I'm a wizard, mind you.
And I love that Conan laughs at him, and then they both start laughing. So like, I'm just being ridiculous. Like, and of course he's like, even Thulsa Doom won't bother me here because the power of these stones up there, fire won't burn up there. Even Thulsa Doom won't come down here. And then Arnold, of course, is like, do flowers grow here? Yeah. And of course he finds that hilarious as well.
Flowers for?
Yeah, he's like a girl.
Yeah.
So he ends up going to the temple, doesn't he? He takes a camel to the temple, doesn't he?
Yeah. I guess it must be his, because it's there.
I'm assuming it's Mako's. Yeah.
And he says, have you ever ridden one of these before? It's like,
I punched one.
I punched one, but yeah. And the thing I love this thing about, I guess it sort of shows his naivety, because he's just flashing this fucking that he got from this, he stole from this temple, and he's flashing it around like an idiot.
Yeah. And of course, well, that's not going to go well. But I do love when he turns up and he's just this huge guy in these like, kind of shambly kind of robes, and then you get this really creepy priest guy comes up and he's like, oh, your body's so good, you should, because the rest of them are kind of
because he sort of says, I'm shy, I don't want.
I'm ashamed, And he's like, can we talk over there where the others can't see? And of course, this creepy priest is like, yeah, of course, brother.
Yeah.
Sort of takes him down there, and then he's like, I'm shy and I can't do this, and he's like, are these your robes? And he kind of starts caressing the robes. He's like, are these your robes? And the guy's like, yeah, they're all. He's like, yes, they're all I have. And he's like, good. He just like elbows him and smacks him over the head. He's like, they're all you'll need. And of course, then you've got this ridiculous image of Conan wearing these robes, and he's massive.
Yeah, he's like twice the size of everybody else in the robes.
It's so ridiculous, but brilliant. So of course, like you said, he gets close. He's walking around, but then of course one of the guards is like, "Hang on a minute, that medallion that belongs in one of our temples, not around your neck, buddy."
Yeah.
So of course, Thorgrim and Rexor.
And this is the scene where they're coming out of the top of the temple, and it does look very almost Spinal Tappy as they come down.
Yeah, totally. Totally. They could have come out to Kings of Metal and it would have been perfectly fine. But yeah, so Thulsa Doom is starts giving a speech, and then immediately Conan is seized, and he's kind of beaten up and dragged before Thulsa Doom in private. Who basically says, you broke into my house, stole my things, and killed my pet. And I love that we get that poor Rexor. He's like, oh, Rexor's grieving because he raised that snake from a baby.
Yeah.
But of course, Conan replies, and he says, you killed my parents, you killed my people. You took my father's sword, and I love how Thulsa Doom just passes it off. He's like, "Oh, it must have been when I was younger." Like,
he says,
"Sorry, buddy." Like, okay.
It says, one of my younger days when I was traveling around.
Like, that's kind of justification. Like, oh, well, it's just when I was younger. I'm sorry I killed your parents, but I was younger.
When he was, it says when he was looking for steel, wasn't it? So that's
so he starts talking about the riddle of steel. He's like, "Do you want to know the riddle of steel?" And he says, "Flesh is stronger." And he coaxes one of his followers just to basically leap off a cliff to her death, and she smashes into this wood on the floor. And he's like, "That's power." What does he say? He's like, what is the strength of steel compared to the power that wields it, the hand that wields it? And then he says, "Contemplate this on the tree of woe," and you're instantly like, "That's not good.
That doesn't sound good, does it?"
Bad time. But then, of course, he like just in case Rexor doesn't understand him, he's like, "Crucify him." Crucify him.
It's like it doesn't remind me of Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
When they're in the medieval bit, and the guy says, "Take them to the Iron Maiden," and they're like, "Iron Maiden!" It's like, kill them.
So Conan's taken to this ancient dead tree in the middle of the desert, and he's nailed to it.
Have you ever played Age of Conan?
No, I haven't.
That's how you start the game. Your character starts nailed to a tree.
Oh, okay.
And Conan walks along and frees you.
Ah.
And then and leaves you to do,
I was always tempted to play it, but I like multiplayer games, man. I just feel like it's going to be full of assholes.
I don't think you have to play with other people, but it's more of a survival game than anything else. So there's lots of like building stuff and
okay.
Hunting and that. I enjoyed it for a while.
I may give it a go one day.
I think it's free at the moment.
It probably is free now, yeah. I may well give it a go at some point.
It's good for a bit. It's not the best, but
So I love, usually when someone's in a movie, in these settings, when someone's about to die, you of course get the vultures starting to circle, and these vultures, Conan, being Conan. He's not happy. He's not gonna just die. This bird comes down and he just grabs it by the neck and kills it with his bare teeth.
Yeah. That's a real dead vulture that they animatronicked. Which is why it looks so good.
Yeah, it does look good. And then of course Conan is about to die when he sees Subutai.
Yeah.
Laughing. And he starts laughing, and I like the way that's shot as well, because it looks like it's just a mirage at first.
Yeah, because
and Conan passes out.
He's got that dip, hasn't it? It reaches that sort of peak, and you can see the other sort of mound in the distance that he comes down.
Yeah. But then, of course, he comes and he is actually there.
Yeah. You think, oh no, it's just a mirage. But no.
And I was always a little confused about this bit, because Subutai and Valeria take him to Akiro, and I don't know how they know about Akiro, because she also says to Akiro that he told me you were a wizard, and I'm assuming she means Subutai, not Conan, because Conan's passed out, unless he was like somewhat alive and awake when Valeria saw him. I'm not sure. But
yeah, I wondered about that. There should be a scene of him saying something, or take me this guy or something,
or them meeting Akira on their way to see Conan or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe that's the other that's the other thing I thought, maybe that because they were clearly following him.
Yes.
So maybe they just followed him to the wizard.
Yeah. You could just assume that happened, I guess. It's not a big deal. It's just one of those things. When you watch a movie enough times, you start questioning things too much. Akiro paints all of these symbols all over Conan's body, and they take him to the stones, and he says to Valeria, he's like, the spirits here extract a heavy toll. There's a heavy price for doing this, because basically he says that when we do this, the spirits are going to try and take Conan's spirit.
Yeah.
And if you stop them, he will live, but they will be pissed. There will be a price to pay for this. And she says she will pay it. She's like, I'll pay it. So we get the kind of the third, I guess, supernatural-ish, or definitely supernatural moment when the spirits come.
The most supernatural, I guess, really. Cause
well, apart from the Thulsa Doom bit that we're about to get, I think.
Oh yeah.
But next to that, it's certainly next to that, in terms of, we have actual creatures now. Spirits come down and try to take Conan's soul or try to steal his body. And it's I think it holds up reasonably well. They fight them off.
Yeah, really nice little animated spirits. So I think I think they still hold up as well. That's one of the great things about this movie, even though it's for 82.
I think it all holds up. Yeah,
holds up really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So eventually, Conan, the next morning, he wakes up. He is alive. And she says some really nice line there as well, doesn't she? It's like all the gods cannot separate us, or something along those lines. It's a wonderful line, anyway.
Yeah.
So having done that, they all get painted up with warrior kind of, black and white camouflage.
Yeah.
And they head to the temple. And start murdering everyone. Well, at first they're kind of stealthy. They're kind of stealthy going in.
Yeah, they stealth their way in, and again,
this is like every D&D campaign I've ever
played. It really is.
We'll stealth our way in, and when it goes wrong,
and then someone's bound to do something.
Someone's going to screw
it up, and then we'll just have to kill everybody to get out.
Murder everyone.
But I like, again, there's this really great shot so they get to the to what is clearly a fucking orgy going on.
Oh yeah, it's an orgy,
and they've got
it's like a dedicated orgy room. But they're also cooking hands.
Yeah, they're cooking people and stuff. And there's that really great shot of the three of them peeking over the lip.
Yes, that's a wonderful shot.
And they're all sort of staring wide-eyed at this orgy
what is going on. Yeah.
It's such a great shot because they all look equally as sort of like, shocked at what's going on in this room.
Yeah. So they start a fire, and of course this kind of causes chaos in the throne room.
I must admit, I feel vaguely sorry for that. The dude who's stirring the cauldron of
dead. Oh god, yeah.
Because he sort of turns around and Conan just sort of like butchers him, and the poor guy, even though he's got a mask on, you could almost see his expression of what just happened. Well,
I mean, he is cooking a bowl of hands, though. Like he can, he probably should. No,
he's clearly an evil dude.
Yeah.
There's just this sort of weird. Or, even like I said, even though you can't see his face, there's just a sort of expression of like, what just happened? Why?
Yeah.
I was just doing my job. Why am I got murdered?
And then of course the theme kicks in and we get the fight. And I love the moment when Rexor recognizes him.
We forgot the Thulsa Doom changing.
Well, no, I thought this happened. Oh no, you're right. It does happen before the fight, doesn't
it? Yeah, it happens before they kick off.
Because it starts before the fight, and then eventually you see him slithering away during the fight.
He's sat there just watching the orgy going on around him.
And I think this works as well.
The princess is next to him.
Yes. Yeah, and we see his eyes change first, and then they apparently just got a mask of his face and pushed a snake armature through it.
Yeah.
But it works really well. Like, I genuinely think it works well. They used a real snake and a miniature later. So there's like a miniature set with a real snake that they put in there, which is how that looks so good as well.
And I love just the way his hands just disappear into his sleeves. It's just a simple little
Well, it's the thing you would have questioned, isn't it? It's like, how does that work? And then, but that's enough. You're like, okay, I can see. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So yeah, he turns into a snake and escapes or disappears during the fight. I love the shot when
he leaves before it kicks off. I think he's just going away.
Right.
It looks like he's bored of the orgy, and he just
like, I've seen enough orgy for today. I'm going to retire.
That's enough orgy for one day.
But I love this shot when during the fight Rexor recognizes Conan.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, you.
Yeah.
He's obviously thought he was dead, but he's back. But yeah, Rexor attacks Conan. They start having a fight, and I think Rexor's got the massive axe, and then Thorgrim comes in with the warhammer.
Yeah. Well, they smack that pillar, doesn't they?
Yeah. So they almost defeat Conan, but he hits the pillar, and the masonry kind of hits Thorgrim, doesn't it? And then they get a chance to escape. Valeria murders a bunch of guys. She gets like surrounded and then kills a bunch of guys.
She gets that great.
It's a great shot.
Scene. So she's behind them, and you think, "Oh God, she's going to get separated."
Yeah, she's going to get murdered. Yeah, and it's almost it's like a double bluff here, which I really like.
Yeah, she takes out these like 4 guys, isn't it?
Yeah,
and like really cool, badass moment, and they all get to the horses and they escape, and of course Thulsa Doom comes out and he sees
they will drown in rivers of blood.
Yeah.
Now they will know why they're afraid of the dark. He's like proper, like, oh, it's great.
Yeah, and again, like we said, even though he's not in it, like, whenever he's in it.
Yeah, you feel that presence whenever he's there. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, there's a reason he was chosen to be the voice of Darth Vader.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that voice is just incredible. But and what I love here as well, that he goes outside as they're riding the horses away, and he takes the snake and he kind of turns it into an arrow, and he tells the snake to seek. And I love that he told the snake not to seek Conan.
Yeah.
He told the snake to seek Conan's girlfriend or wife or lover.
Yeah.
Such a bastard. It's like you could have killed Conan, but you chose not to do that. You chose to kill the one he loves instead.
Well, I guess from his point of view, he's already tried to kill him once and didn't do
it. That's true. So. He failed once, so I guess, maybe. But yeah, so they escape, but of course Valeria is hit by the snake, the snake arrow, and is poisoned. I think it like hits her in the leg, doesn't it?
No, I think it's back.
Was it back?
Yeah, because she's on the horse. I think it's her lower back. She gets hit.
Right. And of course they ride to safety, and then they take her down from her horse, or she falls from the horse. Yeah. And she tells Conan, she's like, I told the wizard I'd pay the price.
Yeah.
And I love, again, some of her lines are the best lines. They're like, I want to breathe my last breath into you. Oh, yeah. My God.
Yeah, she gets all the really great lines.
Such good lines. That lines when she's like, kiss me, I want to breathe my final breath into you. It's like, oh my God, that's so good. It's so good. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, man.
Uh-huh.
I love this goddamn. In case people didn't realize, I love this goddamn film. I think it's criminally underrated online, by the way. I looked it up on IMDb. I was like, 6 point something? Fuck off.
It's 6.9. Yeah.
Oh, that's reasonably high, but I would have gone higher.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's bloody 43 on Metacritic.
Yeah, that could.
They can fuck right off.
So anyway, Valeria's body is burned. She has like a warrior's funeral, and we get the shot where Mako's like, fire won't burn up there.
Yeah.
And of course, Conan runs up there, and even Akiro's like, "Oh my God!" Like, he takes the fire up, and she bursts into flames, giving her this warrior funeral. And then of course, Subutai starts crying.
Yeah.
And Akira's like, "Why are you crying?" And Subutai's like, "Well, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's incapable of crying, so I'll have to cry because he can't do it." No, I think it works in universe. It makes perfect sense. Like Conan and his race will not cry. They're too proud and too
Conan,
strong.
He cannot cry. Therefore, I will cry for him.
That's a great line as well. Great line as well.
It also shows their friendship. It's
absolutely. I genuinely, they have very little time together, really. But I totally buy their friendship, and that's why I was so gutted when Conan the Destroyer come out and it wasn't in it. Like, I genuinely think, like, it as naff as a lot of that movie is, I would have liked it way more just for the fact that Subutai had been in it.
Yeah.
That would have just, raised it enough to where I would have been like, yeah, great.
At least Mako's bloody in it. That would have been worse if Mako wasn't in it.
Yeah. So at the Stones, they basically decide that they're going to make their last stand there.
Yeah.
Yasmina is tied to a rock.
Yeah, they chain her up to a rock,
and we get this shot where so they're basically like, Doom's gonna have to come to us if he wants her. And yeah, they're just ignoring her. She's like just screaming and shouting.
Yeah, my master's gonna kill you all.
Yeah. So this is where we get that talk. Is when they're preparing the defense, and this talk is definitely not in the version that I used to see as a kid. It is on all the DVD versions and stuff now, but as a kid, that little conversation they have, it used to always just cut straight to the. I'm sure it used to cut straight to the speech, the Conan bit, which I love. So they've made everything defensive, and then we see the riders approaching.
Yeah.
Rexor and Thorgrim are on their way, and we get this wonderful moment where Conan finally prays to Crom, because he says earlier in the film to Subutai, he's like, I seldom pray to him because he never listens.
Yeah.
And here he says, I've never prayed to you before. I never had the tongue for it. But no one's going to remember who. What we did here and whether we were good or bad people. He's like, all that matters is that few stood against many. And he's like, he's like, if you're going to do anything for me, grant me revenge. And if you don't, then to hell with you.
To hell with you.
And it's delivered in a very Arnold Schwarzenegger way.
Yes.
So Doom comes and the lieutenants and whatnot, attack the hill as Conan, Subutai, and even Akiro get involved.
From all the because there's lots of mounds, isn't there? Here,
yes,
it's basically one big burial ground.
Yeah,
and from all they've collected all like discarded weapons and armor, and even he's fully sort of kitted up, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, because he ends up killing someone with a spear.
Spear, yeah. And then I killed him with my spear. He's like really chuffed about it.
Yeah. And I love this scene. I mean, this fight scene's fantastic. He does a proper John Rambo on Rexor with the massive spike through the chest.
That is a big spike.
Oh yeah, everything's big. Like the hammers, the spikes, the swords. Like everything's just like huge in this movie. But yeah, so he gets impaled on this spike because he puts like a helmet there, doesn't he? He thinks that it's Conan, so he smashes it and gets impaled. And then of course we finally get the showdown between Conan and Rexor. It's Rexor, isn't it? Rexor's the one with his father's sword.
Yes.
And we get the really well choreographed fight. Rexor is about to defeat Conan.
He's got him on the floor. He's got him. Conan's down.
Conan is down, but then a sword kind of stops the blow and pushes him back and blinds Rexor.
Yeah.
And of course, Conan looks around and sees Valeria, who is now like proper Valkyrie outfit,
full
completely.
On disco Valkyrie.
Yeah, shiny disco Valkyrie. And I love that he looks back to grab his sword, looks again, and she's gone.
She's gone. And she says,
"Do you want to live forever?
Do you want to live forever?" Yeah, she says it about three or four times throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Which says it once. The first time she says it is when they're in the breaking into the temple, the tower.
And then she says it when they jump off the tower later.
Yeah.
There's a few times. It's kind of her catchphrase. But then Conan gets up and he breaks his father's sword and finally kills Rexor.
Yeah.
And he takes the broken the hilt and the broken kind of shard of sword with him. Doom basically is like, well, if I can't have Yasmina, no one will. And tries to shoot her with a snake arrow, but Subutai gets in there with the save with the shield and blocks
jumps in front of her with the shield.
And then Doom rides off, and Yasmina's like, "Oh, actually, I've changed my mind. He's a bad guy."
Yeah.
Although I'm assuming that she
does say, "Don't leave me."
Yeah. I think she's broken from the spell more than anything.
Yeah.
But yes, so Thulsa Doom has escaped, but obviously his main lackeys are now dead, and we see, I don't know if it's that night or sometime soon. I'm presuming it's that night because the actual the temple isn't far away from where Akiro's place is. So that night, Doom is kind of giving this big ceremony, and Conan appears from the shadows behind him, and I love this shot. It's such a good shot. And of course, Doom,
she's with him, isn't she?
Yeah.
Which we've always thought was a bit odd because
I wonder if he's like, I'm going to show you this motherfucker is, a nobody. So Thulsa Doom tries to do what he did to Conan's mother.
Yeah, and it sort of seems to work for a bit.
Yes, briefly. It briefly works, and Conan starts to lower his swords, but then, of course, we get the double blow with his father's broken sword and Conan's sword into the neck, and the followers are just horrified, like, oh my god. Yeah. And then we get a shot of Conan, he cuts the head off, and I love that shot where he just throws it down the steps and the head just bounces and bounces and rolls all the way down these steps. I always wish it went a bit further, but it would have been great if it went right down the middle, just all the way down. But it's almost worse for the fact that it doesn't, because it rolls in a very natural way. It's proper brutal.
They probably did a number of different shots, but I think that's a really good one. I like that one.
Yeah. And then, of course, the leader is not immortal. They now realize, like, hey, Thulsa Doom's just a dude. Well, he clearly has powers. He turned into a snake once, but he's just a dude, and he's dead. And we get this wonderful shot of all of these followers putting their fires out in the pool.
Yeah, putting the torches in the pool, which is it's a really great shot. That whole set is amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it? They built it somewhere, and it ended up being way taller than they planned, apparently.
Yeah.
Because of the shape of the kind of rock they were building it on, they were like, "Oh, we're actually going to have to, build it further and further up."
Yeah.
And I think it works so much better for it because it looks really impressive.
Really imposing.
But so Conan sits, the temple for a while, not sure, because I guess he's achieved.
He sat there, and it does look like it's, well, what the bloody hell do I do now?
Yeah, it's like all I've done my whole life is revenge, and now I've got it.
My girlfriend's dead.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
But eventually he decides, I'm just going to, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to burn this temple down. So he gets an oil lamp and he sets fire to the temple.
I mean, how that temple burns down, I don't know, because
it's stone
pretty
temple.
much stone, but,
But, he sets it on fire anyway. And then he returns Yasmina to her father. Not that we see that. And then Akiro basically tells us that Conan will have many other adventures. And we get to see that great shot of King Conan, the older Conan sitting on the throne.
I mean, they totally plan to just come back the next year and do another one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they say that he will become a king by his own hand, but that's a story for another day.
And it made shitloads of money, so I never really know why it took them so long to
do Destroyer. I'm assuming it's because Arnold got the Terminator and then got real busy.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because I think Terminator was like the year later, right? Or something? It's pretty soon after, I think. So I think Arnold just hit massive stardom after that. Because I think he was reluctant to come back for Destroyer, but felt like he should because, it's the movie that made him.
I think he certainly wanted to move away from Conan afterwards.
I have heard that if Destroyer wasn't so campy, he might have come back for more. But I think after that, he was like, "No, definitely not."
Yeah, Destroyer is not a good movie.
It's not. I have a soft spot for it, but it's not good.
I love Red Sonja. Again, it is not a good movie.
No, it's not a good movie.
But I love Red Sonja.
Red Sonja with not Conan.
I've actually, yes, they didn't have the rights to Conan, so
no, but it's clearly Conan.
It's Conan, yeah. I've seen Red Sonja way more than I've seen both the Conan.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I really have. I think it's just because I love the Red Sonja, and I love Gedren.
Yes.
Again, it's Sandal Bergman, and she was offered the role of Red Sonja, and she said, "No, I want to play the villain."
Fair.
And I think she does a great job.
She's fantastic. Yeah,
really. Great. But yeah, I mean, it's not a good movie, but I really enjoy Red Sonja.
And that's how I feel about Destroyer. It's like, it's not a good movie, but I do enjoy it.
No,
I've got a real soft spot for it.
It's been a long time since I've seen Destroyer.
I was almost tempted after watching Conan.
I was, and I didn't
like,
muddle things, so I thought, no, I'm not gonna watch it now. I'll watch it later, maybe.
Yeah.
And they've tried a number of times to get King Conan up and running, and I think they've come close a couple of times. I think Arnie's sort of agreed to do it, and then things have fallen through, and it's not quite.
I always loved the idea. I just think if like, I always thought it would be great if Arnold finished his career doing Conan.
Yeah,
like the film that really made him, and his final film being Conan. Because I love the idea of Conan being king and just being so fed up of being king and so like, disenfranchised and fed up that he just decides he wants to go out in one last blaze of glory.
I do wonder if, with the success of Top Gun, Maverick, whether there'll be another push for this for
quite possibly,
because I know they're, with the success of that, they're looking to do sequels.
Yeah,
to do
for sure
long time sequels. You know what I mean? Like long gap sequels.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of crap
sequels. So I think we're gonna get a lot of terrible fucking shit that don't deserve sequels.
Definitely.
But if they can pull off King Conan and get Arnie on board and get everything back up and running for that, I'd love to see King Conan.
Me too. I would absolutely adore a Conan movie, especially if, like I said, it's an old Conan. It's still on his IMDb page as announced, the Legend of Conan. I think it's been up there for like ever though. I don't think there's been anything going on with it.
And I mean, there's a cartoon, Conan the Adventurer.
Yes,
there are episodes on YouTube, I watched a couple the other day. I thought, and I did see it years ago, but not all of it.
There's a TV show as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I've never seen that.
It's all right. I mean, it is what it is. It's very low budget.
I'm guessing it was very Hercules.
It's very Italian.
Yeah, that'll surprise me.
I don't know if it is Italian, but it feels very Italian if it's not.
I mean, this movie's, supported the Italian.
Well, this movie is the template for.
Totally is.
It is the template for fantasy movies, I guess, until like Lord of the Rings. Really, it kind of set the template.
Yeah.
Now Lord of the Rings is the template, but back then.
And I mean, so Amazon was going to be doing a Conan series.
Yes. Thank God they didn't.
Well, I'm glad they didn't in the end, but I can't remember. The woman in charge was like, "No way, this is way too masculine and testosterone fueled."
Well, and to be honest,
in this.
And to be honest, I agree with her, because if they're not going to do it properly, don't do it.
You can't half-ass.
You can't half-ass it. So fine, if you feel that way, I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah.
Because if they tried to change it like that, it's not going to work with Conan. Like Conan is the absolute opposite to that, and I think we just need to accept that and either just not make him, or decide we're going to make it in that way.
And I mean the guys who've got the rights at the moment look like they're making pretty good progress with stuff like the Red Sonja movie that they've got planned and things. So maybe we will get a pretty decent Conan.
I would love it if we did. That would be very cool.
Yeah.
But yes, so that was Conan the Barbarian from 1982. Highly recommended from me. I love this movie.
At least just watch the first one.
Not the Destroyer necessarily, because I think, to be honest, without the nostalgia that I have for Destroyer, it's terrible, and I don't think
I think,
and it's so different totally to this movie. It doesn't even feel like the same universe. Not really. At all.
It's way too campy, like you said, campy and over the top in places, and it's very silly. Yeah. But there is fun in it. It still can be an enjoyable movie. I mean, you could say Conan the Barbarian. It is a very slow paced movie. It's not as full on action based as some of the sort of fantasy movies that you would see. But I don't think that's a problem. I think it's I think it's perfectly paced, but I think some people do find it slow.
Yeah, Fair enough.
But I think it's one of the greatest fantasy movies. It genuinely is.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
But yeah, highly recommended from us. We will be back next week reviewing all sorts of stuff. I think by then we will have done. Well, I've already done Cobra Kai. I'm sure you will have by the time we come back to it.
Episode of that and
Cyberpunk. I'm certainly planning on seeing Cyberpunk, and who knows what else.
Yeah.
But until then, stay safe, take care, and we will catch you next time.